Picture this. It is March 2026, a room full of reporters in Washington. The President of the United States is behind a podium. His face is tight. His voice is louder than it needs to be. He has just been told, officially, formally, on the record, that most of America's NATO allies do not want to get involved in his war with Iran. 75 years of alliance. 32 member nations, the most powerful military partnership in human history, and the response to his request for help is silence, followed by no. And instead of recalibrating, instead of asking why, instead of doing what every American president since Truman has done when the alliance frays, he grabs the microphone and shouts 5 words that will be studied in history books for the next century. We do not need the help of anyone. 3,000 miles away in Paris, a French general is watching that clip. He smiles, and he says something so brutal, so precise, so perfectly constructed that it will outlive every missile fired in this entire war. Guess which statement shook the world more? And I am going to make it personal. You watched this president promise the strongest alliances in history. You watched him promise that the world would respect America again. You saw him launch a war without asking a single ally whether they were willing to stand with him. And now you are watching him declare on live television that he does not need the alliance system that won the Cold War, that secured Europe, that kept the peace for 3/4 of a century, because that alliance just told him no. Is that the response of a commander-in-chief who planned for this outcome, or a man who got rejected and is pretending he never wanted the invitation? Stay with me, because this story was not reported the way it deserved to be, and the French general's response contains a strategic warning that most American media completely missed. Let that land for a moment. The President of the United States just publicly abandoned the most successful military alliance in modern history. Not because he has a replacement, not because he has a better system, not because the alliance failed him. He abandoned it because the alliance told him the truth. They told him they would not join a war he started without consulting them. He broke on Iraq when allies pushed back. He broke on Afghanistan when the withdrawal was chaotic. He broke on Ukraine when the politics got complicated. And now he has broken on NATO itself, the foundation stone of Western security, for 75 years. Not cracked it, not questioned it, declared it unnecessary during a war, while ships burn in the Strait of Hormuz. But here's the part that should make every American lean forward. Within hours of Trump's declaration, French General Michel Yakovlev, a senior figure in French military strategic thinking, went on the record with a response that has since been broadcast, shared, and quoted in every major capital on earth. Read that again. A senior French military official compared the American war effort to the Titanic, not before it hit the iceberg, not during the collision, but after, the evening after. When the water is already pouring in, the hull is breached, and the band is still playing because no one has told the passengers the truth yet. That is not a throwaway insult. That is a strategic assessment wrapped in a metaphor. And the metaphor was chosen with surgical precision, because the iceberg did not destroy the Titanic. The Titanic was destroyed by the certainty of the people running it, the certainty that it was unsinkable, that the warnings did not matter, that speed was more important than caution. That is the parallel Yakovlev is drawing, not that the war is lost, that the people running it are so certain of their own invincibility that they cannot see the water rising around their ankles. Now, before you say the Allies are being disloyal or short-sighted, you are right. In a narrow, immediate sense, every NATO member benefits from a stable Persian Gulf. Every European economy is tied to energy supply chains that run through the Strait of Hormuz. France itself imports significant quantities of Gulf oil. The Allies have skin in this game. Their refusal is not costless. But here is what mainstream coverage buried. According to Reuters, Trump launched strikes on February 28th without invoking NATO consultation procedures. The BBC confirmed that no Article 4 consultation, the mechanism NATO members use to discuss threats before taking action, was requested by Washington before the first bomb fell. AP reported that Allied capitals learned about the strikes from news broadcasts, not from secure diplomatic channels. Think about what that means. The president bypassed the alliance, started a war, watched it spiral, and then called the allies he had ignored, asking them to send ships. Germany's chancellor said plainly, "This is not a NATO matter. Canada declined. Japan declined despite its 95% dependence on oil from the Strait. South Korea declined. And when the rejections piled up, Trump did not ask what went wrong. He did not convene an emergency NATO summit. He declared he does not need them. He did not raise his voice in self-reflection on. He did not pause to consider that perhaps starting a war without consulting your allies is why your allies will not join it. He just shouted louder. And the louder he shouted, the quieter the alliance became. Now, here is the history lesson that changes everything. NATO has survived disagreements before. France withdrew from NATO's integrated military command in 1966 under de Gaulle and did not return until 2009. Germany refused to join the Iraq War in 2003. Turkey has clashed with allies repeatedly over Kurdish policy. The alliance is not fragile. It was designed to absorb friction. But no American president has ever declared that the United States does not need NATO. Not during the Cold War, not during the War on Terror, not during any crisis in 75 years. And most Americans have never heard that fact stated out loud, because it has never been true before. Every president since Truman understood that American power is amplified by alliances, not diminished by them. That the ability to project force globally depends on bases in allied territory, on intelligence shared across allied networks, on logistics chains that run through allied ports and airfields. The United States does not have a military base in Iran, but it has bases in Germany, in Japan, in South Korea, in Turkey, in Italy, and the United Kingdom, and bases that exist because of NATO and bilateral alliances. When Trump says he does not need NATO, he is saying he does not need the infrastructure that enables American global power. This is precisely why General Yakovlev's Titanic metaphor resonated instantly in every defense ministry on Earth. Because the Titanic's captain did not need warnings either. This is precisely why allies are not just refusing, they are distancing, not hedging, distancing. There is a difference. Hedging means keeping options open. Distancing means calculating that proximity to this president is itself a strategic risk. Here is something that surprises us every time we check the numbers. About 90% of people watching this video right now are not subscribed to this channel. 90%. And here is why that matters for what you are watching right now. The algorithm buries content from channels with low subscribe to view ratios. That means this kind of analysis, the kind that connects a French general's Titanic metaphor to NATO's structural crisis to your gas prices in a single thread, disappears unless you subscribe. You have already done the hard part. You watched this far. The easy part is one click. It costs nothing. It takes 1 second. And it tells the system that this kind of breakdown matters more than 30-second clips with no context. Let's keep going. Let that sit. The most carefully chosen phrase in that statement is informed, not declined, not refused, not rejected, informed. That word is doing enormous work. It is designed to make the rejection sound bureaucratic, procedural, almost administrative, as if the Allies sent a memo rather than delivered a historic strategic verdict. But decode what informed actually means here. It means Allied governments, through their ambassadors, their defense ministers, their heads of state, formally communicated to Washington that they will not participate. That is not a memo. That is a wall. And who is not at the table is the part that should alarm you most. It is not just one region. Germany means continental Europe is out. Canada means North America's closest partner is out. Japan and South Korea mean the Pacific allies are out. The rejection is global, uniform, total. That is not an accident. That is a deliberate, coordinated signal from the entire allied world that this war and this president have crossed a line that consultation could have prevented, but that unilateral action made permanent. And then a journalist asked a question that cut through it all. At a press briefing, a reporter asked the State Department spokesperson directly, if the president says the United States does not need NATO, and NATO allies have confirmed they will not participate, what is the administration's plan for securing the Strait of Hormuz without allied naval support? Let me decode that. American military capability is sufficient means we are alone, and we are pretending that is a choice. Ongoing diplomatic channels remain open means we are still calling and they are still saying no. Every word in that answer is a euphemism for isolation. The United States is not choosing independence from NATO. The United States is experiencing rejection from NATO and rebranding it as independence. Those are fundamentally different things. And every allied capital, every adversary capital, every neutral capital on Earth knows the difference. America is not taking control. America is losing partners, not sharing the burden, not redistributing costs, losing the nations that made the burden bearable. And the concrete numbers back that up. The U.S. Navy has 11 carrier strike groups. Securing the Strait of Hormuz against Iranian fast attack boats, drone boats, sea mines, and coastal anti-ship missiles requires sustained presence that ties down multiple groups indefinitely. Without allied destroyers, frigates, mine countermeasures vessels, and maritime patrol aircraft, the assets that NATO partners provide in every major naval operation, the U.S. fleet is stretched in ways that create vulnerabilities elsewhere, in the Pacific, in the Mediterranean, in the Atlantic. You do not replace 32 allied navies with a press conference. Since launching strikes on February 28, 2026, this administration has produced the following documented outcomes. Every major NATO ally approach for participation has formally declined, confirmed by AP, BBC, Reuters, and the Financial Times through official statements from Berlin, Ottawa, Tokyo, and Seoul. The president has publicly declared the United States no longer needs NATO, confirmed by White House pool transcript and broadcast footage. A senior French general has compared joining Trump's coalition to boarding the Titanic after it hit the iceberg, confirmed by French media and subsequently reported by Reuters and The Guardian. U.S. gas prices have surged 20% to $3.60 per gallon, confirmed by AAA and the Energy Information Administration. Oil has topped $100 per barrel, confirmed by Bloomberg and Reuters. Iran has implemented a selective blockade of the Strait of Hormuz, allowing Chinese and neutral shipping while restricting U.S.-linked vessels, confirmed by Lloyd's List maritime tracking data. These are completed developments with sources, not projections. The generation that watched Mission Accomplished unfold in Iraq, that watched alliances fray and narratives collapse under the weight of reality, is watching something familiar happen right now. Except this time, the president is not just losing the war narrative. He is burning the alliance on the way down. Here is the question that matters now. The Western alliance system is experiencing its deepest rupture since 1949. The president has declared he does not need it. The allies have declared they will not join his war. A French general has told the world that joining Trump is like boarding the Titanic after the iceberg, and the Strait of Hormuz remains a war zone with no coalition to secure it. Option A, this is theater. Trump's declaration is bluster. Allies are performing distance for domestic consumption. Behind the scenes, intelligence sharing continues. Naval coordination persists through bilateral channels, even if NATO as a formal structure is sidelined. The alliance bends dramatically but does not break. When the war ends, relationships repair. The institutional depth of 75 years of partnership outlasts one president's rhetoric. Three things support this view: historical resilience of NATO through previous crises, the sheer economic self-interest of allied nations in Hormuz stability, and the fact that military-to-military relationships often survive political ruptures.